Congressman Trent Kelly, District 1, is on the phone with us, and again, always available on Twitter at REP Rep Trent Kelly, keeping people informed. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. Always great to be on your show.
Thank you, and I know you guys are busy, but any break or anything to update us as far as the debt ceiling is concerned? And I know you guys have done your job.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. I think the president is giving some, but I still don't think he's real serious about negotiations.
Yeah.
He wants a clean debt ceiling, and that is off the table. I think they understand that. He doesn't want to do work requirements, which he's voted for in the past as a senator. So I think the people around him are driving him not to negotiate in the far left. But at the end of the day, we can't continue to pile up this $31 trillion in national debt with no spending curve. I mean, you wouldn't extend your children's credit card limit and tell them, hey, spend more, and we're not going to do that either. We're not going to let them continue to spend more.
Congressman, it's one of the reasons we need to change what's going on in schools, to teach history, to teach government in a better way, to produce responsible students out there, responsible voters in the future, because many people have no earthly idea. They don't connect this one way or the other. They don't know where the money comes from. They don't know how much is being spent. They have no idea because we have dumbed down our voters from generation to generation.
We have, in just basic financial accounting. And, of course, they taught some of that in high school and used to have home economics where they would teach you how to balance checkbooks. And now they just go to an ATM, and if there's money in there, they get it out. If there's not, they ask mom and dad for more money.
Yes. I hear some of these man on the street interviews, and they are scary, what we don't know as far as our government is concerned. So the last I heard is that McCarthy has said basically he's willing to maybe keep the budget at the same thing, to freeze it at this year's level and not ask for the 10%, or is the 10% cut still a mandate?
Well, we're talking about the 2022 levels, which is already a huge increase, and I think that he is going to get a cut, or he definitely will not increase. This is the first time in history, if we get this through, that we will actually cut spending as opposed to, and we're not cutting defense, we're cutting those non-defense areas.
Well, and also not Social Security or Medicare.
No, that's just the same old tired tactics that Democrats say every time to scare people to death, going they're going to cut Medicare, they're going to cut Social Security, and that's never been on the table. Yeah. None of us have ever said that, or maybe there's one or two, on the right wing who have said that, but that has not ever been the Republican stance, and they know that. Yeah. It's just scare tactics to try to garner people for their position.
Being in the circle there in Congress, what's the word that you hear on his health as far as the president's concerned?
I don't pay attention. I mean, I can watch him on TV, and I can tell that he does not move and does not appear to always be fully engaged or at a level. Just, I think there should be some type. And listen, age has nothing to do with it. There are people who are 90 who are in better shape than people who are 50. But at the point you start displaying symptoms of not being competent, then there should be some type of test when people start questioning that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me switch subjects here, and let me play the soundbite to issue us in on this topic. Here he goes.
What happens on May 31st?
According to the rule...
No, what happens on May 31st?
According to the rule, people have, from the date the rule was published until that date, to do one of several things. They can either detach the brace from the firearm and keep both, and they can attach that brace to another one.
They got to remove or destroy the brace, get a longer barrel, turn in or destroy the firearm, or register the firearm. Is that right? They got to do one of those four things. If they don't do that and the timeline runs out, what happens to those individuals?
I assume that people who are aware...
No, I'm not asking. What happens if they don't do those four things?
I think that
Let's cut to the chase. They could be a felon, right?
Well,
they could be a felon.
It depends on the facts and circumstances of each case.
And how are you going to enforce this? We're going to go to gun ranges?
What we will do is...
You're going to go to manufacturers and look at the risk of people they sold braces to?
So we are aware that you may have purchased some of these FRTs. Okay. So now we are having, like, the whole agency is basically reaching out to these purchasers.
That's incredible.
And we have to pick them up.
So I won't be answering any questions today.
Okay, so you...
Are you refusing to give us the trigger?
I'm not refusing anything. I won't be answering any questions.
These are apparently agents already at gun ranges out there. So how can the agency make that rule without congressional oversight?
They can't, and this time after time, this administration has tried to make laws and rules that are not enforceable under the Constitution and would have to be passed by Congress, and some of these by constitutional amendment. And they just continue to ignore the Constitution, ignore the law, and try to pass rules that they cannot enforce. I mean, it's like our border. There are plenty of laws that they can use to enforce our border right now. They just choose not to enforce those laws. So why would we expect them to be able to enforce something that is not legal or constitutional to start with?
Yeah. It's gone beyond corrupt. They've bent the rule of law that's just absolutely incredible. Not only from Hunter Biden's laptop and everything else, but I want to spend a couple of seconds with you while I have you on here as far as Ukraine is concerned. And being the highest-ranking military officer in Congress, I think it's appropriate. But Jake Sullivan had an interview and found out that we had a little bit of an accounting area, and if you could speak to this.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to a former White House stenographer who this month outed you as an anonymous senior administration official who briefed reporters on Air Force Two en route to Ukraine in 2014. He says that you spoke about giving aid to the Ukrainian national gas industry just days after the second son had secretly joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company. He says he considers you part of a corrupt influence peddling conspiracy. He wants to testify to a Delaware grand jury about it. Do you have a response to that? And were you part of a corrupt influence peddling operation involving the Biden family in Ukraine or any other country?
No.
That is not the one that I wanted to play, but there was a cost overrun of about $2 billion. Did you guys take that up in Congress, in the House?
No, we have not yet, and but I think we will. And as far as the money going to Ukraine, Paul, I mean, I'm in briefings that are not open to the public, that are classified in nature. But I feel confident that we know where the money and equipment is going, and that it's pretty safe that money that is sent to Ukraine is being used for the purposes that it is intended to be used for.
What I understand, it's not the military doesn't have outlets like car dealers out there. So when they build tanks or weapons and everything else, I guess they go immediately from the contract by the military to whether it's a ship or a tank or a missile goes to the appropriate location or warehouse of the Armed Services Division. And as soon as they send that out to it, it's cataloged in the warehouse. When you move that tank, let's say, to the Ukraine, an order immediately goes out for a tank to replace it from the manufacturer. And apparently between the fact of what that tank was valued when they sent it out to where it was when it was in the warehouse is $2 billion to the plus. So I think what Jake Sullivan said that we had $2 billion more to spend should we want to on equipment for the Ukrainian war.
Yeah, I don't pay. You got to remember, Jake Sullivan is the guy who was responsible for the debacle in getting out of Afghanistan. I mean, he was the guy who ignored military advice. So, I'm not aware of any $2 billion being spent. That has not been approved by Congress, to my knowledge. But Jake Sullivan is not someone who I trust to understand anything that's going on in the military, as shown by his debacle in Afghanistan.
He's one of those guys that's been hanging around for generations, or for administration after administration, as far as Democrats are concerned, and you can't get rid of them. I mean, it's one. You just can't shake him off. He always reappears one way or the other. I do want to ask you when we come back, did you get a sat phone? I know that the Senate is getting satellite phones. What do you think's behind this, and why isn't the House getting satellite phones free? And what is the disruption that people think might happen that you would need a sat phone? We asked yesterday Cindy Hyde-Smith, and she said she has not heard anything about it. So far, we're told that 50 senators, most likely all Democrats, have accepted their sat phone. What is that about? We'll ask of Congressman Trent Kelly coming up in just a moment. With the good Congressman Trent Kelly, you didn't get a sat phone. Nobody in the House got a sat phone, did they?
No one in the House got a sat phone, unless it's some of these Democrats who have been on the January 6th commission. They get all this extra security, most of them who are for defunding the police, but they want their own personal security.
Wow.
But I'm no House sat phones that I'm aware of, and I don't know why they would think they need those.
I think everybody was worried, and even loved ones of people who work in Washington, D.C., and certainly the congressional staff families, because everybody was putting together these three things: that 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate that went missing. Nobody's ever found that, as far as I know. I haven't seen it in the news this morning. It was on a rail car that was sealed, going between a couple of Wyoming to California, and when it got there, it was still sealed, but there was 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate that was missing inside. That's a lot more that was even in the Oklahoma bombing. And then secondly, this U-Haul rental vehicle that was smashing into the gates of the White House, which that guy was just mentally deranged. And then all of a sudden we combined that with Senate members, because of some possibility of an interruption in communication, were given sat phones. So everybody was putting that together saying, what the hell is going on in D.C.?
Well, Paul, I mean, I guess we could walk around here. There's 1,000 reasons every day to walk around in fear of your life and scared. But at the end of the day,
and you would know that.
I just don't. Yeah, I would know that, being on the committees I am, and so I don't know of any heightened threats to the Capitol or any reason that they would be doing that. And I can tell you, today's just like a normal day to me. Nothing greater, nothing heightened.
Well, but in your case, even a baseball game could be dangerous, so we understand that.
Absolutely.
The 20 homeless veterans who were evicted from Orange County hotels this week last week, to make way for a group of migrants, has made so many different people mad that they would take these homeless veterans who just need a helping hand, kick them out of the hotel, and put some illegals in there. The probably one of the worst people we have ever seen in state government as an appointee has been to Mr. Mayorkas, but I want you to listen to this.
What's the rough cost to American taxpayers, since the roughly 4 million people have come into this country illegally since January of 2021, as those people show up at community hospitals, as they enter the school system, as they get other government help? Do you have a taxpayer cost?
Understand it. He said basically, what is the cost of millions of illegals coming to our hospitals, to our schools, to our city government? What is the cost of this? And Mayorkas answers with this.
Let me turn that question around a little bit. Since there are desperate workers in foreign countries that are looking for jobs in the United States where they can earn money lawfully and send much-needed remittances back home.
I can't believe he said that, Congressman.
I cannot. Listen, their policies are so out of touch. And at the point where we're kicking out taxpayers, we're kicking kids out of school, we're kicking homeless veterans who have served our country out of places to house illegal migrants. You know, in New York City, it's so funny. They act like they're the epicenter of all the illegal immigration, but they've only got a small fraction of what Texas has, yet they're exploding at the seams. But they wanted to be a sanctuary city, and I wonder what happened to that. They don't seem to want to be a sanctuary city anymore.
Neither does Chicago or San Francisco or anybody else when it comes down to that, but it is amazing. What is the next thing we watch for as far as the debt ceiling is concerned? Because we're getting down to the nitty-gritty on this one, and there are a lot of people worried about this. What is it going to do to our credit rating? What's it going to do to the banks, et cetera, et cetera? Do you have any doubt that we're going to cut a deal that's just going to be at the last minute?
These people up here can't do anything that's not last minute. But first of all, we didn't get when this debt ceiling was going to close until after we passed it through the House. So you got to remember, Janet Yellen is the same person who told us that we weren't going to have inflation, that it was going to be transitory, and didn't see inflation coming. So now we're trusting her to say that June 1st is the deadline, a number that she pulled out of the air. I would tell you she's going to have to show me her work. And if it gets to June 15th, that expands. A lot of this is just posturing. We're not going to default on our debt. And if they don't want to default on the debt and want to raise the debt ceiling, all they have to do, there's a bill from the House that is passed that they can pass in the Senate and the President can sign today if they choose to do that. We've done our work, but I think a lot of it is just posturing and negotiating. And I promise you, President Biden will let no crisis that he created not continue to cause problems, but he never has any way to solve those crises he creates.
You have any hearings going on from your committee?
Yes. Well, I had several Intel hearings yesterday on armed services. We're ready. We were supposed to be, had he not created this debt crisis with Yellen saying it's going to be June 1st, we would be marking up NDAA this week, at least the subcommittees, but we pushed that until after we get back from Memorial Day to do NDAA markup so we can make sure we have the top lines right before we mark to a number.
I got you. It is always a pleasure. Thank you for filling us in. Anything else and final thoughts here, sir?
No, and we're still working on the Farm Bill, and I think that's important. We want to get that out in a timely manner this year to make sure we take care of our farmers.
Listen, you're from what city? I forgot.
Well, I live in Saltillo right now, but I'm from Union.
That's from Union.
Small town.
Yeah, well, okay. I was thinking something else. Look, I appreciate it very, very much, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You got it. Trent Kelly, Congressman, 1st District, and I for some reason thought it was from another place in there, but the mind wanders.